Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive here on Tech Talk Central. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Sarah.
We've got some source materials sent in by one of you, asking us to kind of jump into what feels like a bit of a mirrorless camera battle. Two really popular models.
That's right, Nathan. We're going deep on the Canon EOS R7 and the Sony A7 IV today.
Yep.
We'll be pulling out the key stuff from the material we were given, specs, features, the good, the bad.
The pros and cons, yeah. Just trying to help you get informed kind of quickly.
Exactly. Our mission is basically to unpack what these sources say about these two cameras.
And figure out what really sets them apart. Let's dive in and see who might be winning this specific best mirrorless camera fight, at least according to the info we have here. Okay, so first up, the Canon R7. We're looking at an Amazon listing and a pretty detailed review from the sources.
Right, so this one's positioned as an APS-C mirrorless body. It's got a 32.5 megapixel CMOS sensor inside.
And the price. The sources mentioned it being somewhere around $13.99 to $14.99. Body only. Yeah, that range.
Yeah.
And the review really highlights its autofocus. That seems to be a major strength.
Okay.
It's Canon's dual-pixel CMOS AF2. Covers almost the whole frame, like up to 651 zones, and it's got subject and eye tracking.
The review actually claims it's similar to their, top-end R3 cameras AF.
Yeah, which is pretty fascinating, right? Seeing that level of performance sort of trickle down.
Definitely. And speed is clearly a big selling point based on this material.
Oh, yeah, it does, what, 15 frames per second mechanical shutter?
15 mechanical or a really blistering 30 fps with the electronic shutter.
Wow.
Plus, there's a raw burst mode mentioned, even has pre-shooting, so you can kind of capture shots before you fully press the button.
That's huge for, trying to nail those really fleeting moments, action, wildlife, that kind of thing.
For sure. And for video people, a key thing highlighted is no typical 30-minute record limit.
Right, which is great if you're doing longer takes like interviews or, vlogging segments. Those you just keep rolling.
And the video specs seem solid, too. Sources mentioned 4K oversampled from 7K up to 30p.
And standard 4K at 60p, though the review did note that's line skipped, which might impact quality a bit.
Okay, good detail. CLOG3 is available too. If you're into color grading, that gives you way more flexibility later on.
Definitely. It's also got 5-axis in-body image stabilization, IBIS.
Right, the IBIS. And it can apparently work with stabilized lenses.
Yeah, for potentially, killer stabilization. Less handshake blur.
Dual UHS-2 card slots are listed as a pro too, which is, pretty crucial for backup or if you're doing paid work.
Absolutely essential for pros. And it uses the RF mount, of course, but you can adapt older EF/EFS lenses.
Though the sources do mention third-party RF lens options are still a bit less common.
True. Now, the review, it didn't pull any punches on the cons either. Ergonomics got called out.
Like what specifically?
Things like where the scroll wheel is placed and the grip may be feeling a bit small if you have larger hands.
Okay.
And a really significant point, especially if you use big, heavy lenses, there's no option for a dedicated battery grip.
Oh, wow. No option at all.
None mentioned. The reviewers saw that as a major drawback, particularly for balancing those bigger lenses or just shooting for longer periods.
Yeah, I can see that. They also mentioned buffer limits, right, when you're shooting bursts.
Especially in RAW, it can fill up. And that super fast 30TP's electronic shutter.
Let me guess, rolling shutter.
Yep. Noticeable rolling shutter distortion if things are moving fast across the frame. That's often the trade-off with electronic shutters.
And the build quality, while okay, apparently isn't quite that, tank-like feel of the old Canon 7D series Pro bodies.
Right, not quite that level of robustness, according to the review.
Okay.
Okay, so let's shift over to the Sony A7 IV. Our main source here is an Amazon listing focusing on specific kit bundle.
And this one's different, right? It's full frame.
Exactly. Full frame mirrorless, featuring a 33-megapixel XMOR RCMOS sensor.
And the price on that bundle listed?
Around $2,741, so definitely a step up in price compared to the R7 body.
Yeah, quite a bit. The listing seems to position it as a really versatile hybrid camera, good for stills and video.
That's the angle. That 33MP full-frame sensor is noted for, aiming for clarity, low noise, good color.
Wide ISO range, too, up to 512 and 200 native, and it mentions 15 stops of dynamic range.
Which is impressive. More dynamic range generally means, well, more detail you can recover in the really bright highlights and dark shadows.
And the processing power, it's got Sony's BONZ XR engine.
Right, highlighted for speed. handling all that data, enabling faster continuous shooting, though it's listed as up to 10 fps, so not as fast as the R7.
10 FPS max, okay. But driving advanced AF tracking, real-time IAF across, what, 759 points?
Yeah, still a very sophisticated AF system. Video is also a strong point in the listing. Mentions robust 4K 60p recording in 10-bit.
10-bit's nice for color depth.
Yep.
And S-syntone.
Yeah, that's Sony's picture profile designed for a pleasing cinematic look, kind of straight out of camera. Less grading needed, maybe.
Gotcha. It also has 5-axis steady shot image stabilization, similar idea to the Canon's IBS.
And one specific video feature called out is focus breathing compensation.
Oh, what's that do exactly?
It helps electronically correct for that slight shift in zoom or field of view that some lenses exhibit when you rack focus. Keeps the framing more consistent.
Ah, interesting. And it has a higher res electronic viewfinder too, right? The EVF?
Yep, 3.68 million dots compared to the R7 spec, which is lower based on what we have.
So, okay, let's put them side by side, just based on these sources we looked at. The huge fundamental difference is that sensor size.
Absolutely. R7 is APS-C, the A7 IV is full frame.
And the implication there, R7's smaller sensor gives it that 1.6x crop factor, which is a big plus for telephoto reach, right? Like for wildlife or sports getting closer.
Exactly. Whereas the A7 IV's full-frame sensor, well, it typically offers that shallower depth of field look, more background blur.
And potentially better low-light performance. So you said the R7 review was a bit mixed on its low-light.
Yeah, the source material wasn't definitively saying the A7 IV was vastly better in low light, just based on sensor size alone, but full frame often has an edge there.
Burst speed, though, that seems to lean heavily towards the R7.
Oh, yeah. 15 pp's mechanical, 30 electronic versus the A7 IV's max of 10 TPs. If capturing peak action is the main goal, the R7 looks faster on paper here.
Video features are interesting, too. R7 source highlights the unlimited recording and the CLU3 for grading.
While the A7 IV listing emphasizes that 10-bit color, the S-Synone profile for an easier workflow and the focus breathing compensation.
So both strong in video, but maybe catering to slightly different priorities or workflows based on this info.
Seems that way. And price, obviously a big gap as presented in the sources. The A7 IV kit is significantly more than the R7 body only.
Plus the A7 IV has that higher res EVF, according to the specs.
It's worth pointing out, though, the A7 IV source was just a product listing. We didn't get those user experience critiques like we did with the R7 review. The ergonomic stuff, the missing grip.
Right, so it's harder to do a direct pros and cons comparison just from this specific material. We're missing some of that user feedback context for the Sony. Okay, so listener, thinking about you, maybe trying to decide between something like these two, based only on these sources. The Canon R7 really does seem positioned as like a speed demon, a reach machine, a workhorse for action, wildlife, maybe video creators needing that speed and unlimited recording time.
At a pretty competitive price point, even with those limitations noted, like the ergonomics or that missing battery grip option.
Yeah, whereas the Sony A7 IV, well, from its listing, it comes across as that higher-end, really well-rounded full-frame hybrid.
Leaning more on the overall image quality potential of full frame, the dynamic range, that faster processor, and maybe those more refined video features like 10-bit and S-Synone.
But at a significantly higher price, at least in the bundle shown.
Definitely presented as a more premium option.
So here's maybe a final thought to chew on. Looking at these strengths, the sources lay out the R7's raw speed and reach versus the A7 IV's full-frame quality and features. How much does that fundamental sensor size difference really dictate which is the best tool for your specific shooting style?
Especially when you factor in that price gap and maybe some of those surprising feature omissions like the R7's lack of a battery grip. Does the performance per dollar of the R7 make it more compelling for certain jobs, even against a higher spec full frame like the A7 IV? It really seems like, as the sources suggest, these are cameras built with slightly different core priorities. Understanding your priorities is probably key.
Yeah, choosing the right tool for your job. Absolutely fascinating comparison just pulling from these sources. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Always interesting to see how the specs and features stack up when you lay them out like this.
Definitely. If you found this helpful, please do subscribe to our channel, Tech Talk Central.
And if you want to find the latest prices and maybe some deals in these cameras, be sure to check out the links we've put in the description below.
Thanks again for watching.